Grace and peace, everybody. You saw the thumbnail, you saw the title. So you know what we're about to do. We're back. Hey, I just wanted to go over a very quick video, just kind of explaining what's going on with Young Thug now that he's out of jail. Well, maybe you didn't know that he actually did leave jail. So let's go ahead and bring this in as a quick news article that I wanted to discuss and kind of bring in. I'll just add a little bit of color commentary, but hopefully this will be encouraging to you all, kind of give you an update on what's going on with he who is known as the Thug. Let's go.
Rapper Young Thug, a free man for the first time in more than 2.5 years, discreetly chauffeured in this Mercedes with his attorney through a back gate of the Fulton County Jail just hours after accepting a plea deal.
How do you plead?
Guilty.
The 33-year-old, whose real name is Jeffrey Williams, pleaded guilty to gang, drug, and gun charges. The judge then sentenced the Grammy winner to 40 years in prison with 5 years to be served, then commuted that to time served. Now he's on probation for 15 years under the condition he stays away from Atlanta except for major family events like weddings and funerals, and mandatory community service in the form of anti-gang and gun violence presentations.
I take full responsibility for, my crimes or my charges.
This was a huge risk with a huge payoff.
Young Thug took what's called a non-negotiable.
Hold on, I just want to say that. I just want to add two things to that. I think leaving Atlanta is probably the best blessing that Judge Whitaker could dole out to Jeffrey Williams. Get out of here. Get out of Atlanta, out of the metro area. Go away. Go set up shop in Savannah, somewhere else. I do agree with him. And boy, oh boy, was that not the most nerve-wracking, stressful, what's going to happen next type of scenario. My goodness anymore. I'm sure most of our blood pressure and our anxiety levels were all elevated. So I agree with the lawyer as well. Like this was a gamble. You had no idea what could have happened. And Judge Whitaker, hats off to her.
Negotiated plea deal, giving Judge Paige Reese Whitaker, who only recently took over the trial because the original judge was removed, complete authority over his sentence.
What changed was that there was now a person sitting with that robe, a judge that is going to be fair.
The YSL trial is far from over. Two of Young Thug's co-defendants, Diamante Kendrick and Shannon Stillwell, are still being tried back in court on Monday.
About this trial of the century, Georgia's longest trial and one that has captured national attention. Of course, we have to bring back our favorite Atlanta attorney, Josh Schiffer. Josh, you are not personally tied to this case. You have not been a representative.
I got to say, Josh Schiffer, man, that guy is comfortable in his skin. Hey, you know what? Hats off to him. I don't know much about him except that he's an Atlanta attorney. But you know what? Hats off to him. He seems extremely comfortable in his skin. And, hats off, man. Let's go. Let's see what he's got to say.
Representing attorney in this case, but you have been following trial, as many of us have, and you were watching yesterday as we heard the defense team, Young Thug's attorney, say that they are going to enter a non-negotiated plea deal. And a lot of folks are really trying to wrap their heads around everything that happened as we took them through this, as we took them through the plea deal process, and then what ultimately was a shocking sentencing. But I want to start from the very beginning. What was your reaction when you heard that a plea deal was about to go down?
I was absolutely shocked. I had just finished speaking with a few of my colleagues and members of the press about how exciting it was going to be to get back to a newly reformatted trial with substantially less co-defendants, really thinking about how Judge Whitaker was going to handle the smaller trial, what part of the state's cases were going to be removed due to the previous pleas that we've seen over the end of last week, beginning of this week. The case changed so dramatically, but we expected to see 3 co-defendants, including Jeffrey Williams, continue to stand up for their rights against the state's presentation of their evidence. We were all very surprised then at about 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon with the announcement that a plea agreement had been reached. And we immediately knew that both sides had to have given up substantial ground in their negotiations. We understood that there were some generous terms being discussed for a plea for Mr. Williams, also known as Young Thug, but that some of the other onerous requirements the state was requesting were never going to work for Mr. Williams and his ability to continue his career, his musical production, and be a successful citizen. And they didn't agree. Let's just be very clear about that. What we saw yesterday as part of the sausage making we call criminal justice was an agreement that a plea should be entered. And any defendant can take a plea at any time during the trial. It's just not negotiated. You can stand up, use your First Amendment rights, and say, Judge, I plead guilty to the charges presented in the charging document, in this case, an indictment. But as for sentencing, there's no agreement there. And we didn't see an agreement between Chief ADA Love, the state's prosecutor working on behalf of DA Fonnie Willis, when she set forth at the beginning of the plea what the state wanted and the facts justifying the state's recommendation of 45 years, do 25 years in prison. Only then did we find out that there were offers on the table that basically were a bunch of probation, some backloaded time. But Mr. Williams, had he agreed to the plea offer, would have walked out of jail a long time ago. However, there was such a substantive disagreement as to the special conditions of that sentence that no agreement could be reached. That's why we were having the trial with Mr. Williams. By taking the risk of presenting that plea naked to the judge, asking basically Mr. Steele and Mr. Keith Adams, Young Thug's lawyers, said, Judge, we want to plead guilty to these specific charges. We understand the range of sentences. We take responsibility and say that there are enough facts to justify a conviction, not that the defense at all agreed with the factual recitation of the state. In fact, we had some really good conversation and watching some fantastic lawyering, how Brian Steele specifically evaded many of the allegations made by the state when it comes to Jeffrey Williams. And Jeffrey Williams admitted guilt only to the crimes that supported his conviction, not the specifics. That allowed Judge Paige Reese Whitaker to issue a sentence that she felt was fair and met the substantial best interest of justice. And that sentence is a probated sentence. There are risks on the back end if he violates that probation. But should Jeffrey Williams comply with the terms of his sentence in probation, he is a free man who will be a successful entertainer moving forward.
This all started because of a mistrial motion, but there have been countless of mistrial motions throughout the course of this trial and witness testimony and presentation to the jury. What was it about this one that really got the ball going?
It really was the first time that the judge had come out and weighed in on, let's just say, the strength of a mistrial motion. We've seen dozens, literally dozens. I can't think of a trial that's had more mistrial motions over the last 150 odd days of trial, some of which were very quick and just immediately denied. Judge, that's wrong, mistrial. Other mistrial motions were very thorough. Brian Steele previously filing a detailed, extensive written motion for a mistrial that we all understood to be a precedent or a setup for a court of appeals, because they understood likely the court was going to be denying a mistrial. A mistrial is an extreme remedy available to the court only where really the trial has been deemed unfair. We've also discussed with this mistrial the idea of with prejudice or without. And when this mistrial motion, the most immediate one, was mentioned last Wednesday, immediately Judge Paige Reese Whitaker said there's not going to be a mistrial with prejudice. The person who had issued or had stated the inappropriate character evidence didn't do it intentionally. It was not something that was planned or contrived. It was a legitimate mistake. So a mistrial with prejudice didn't seem to be on the table. However, she was very open and basically asked the parties to talk about a mistrial without prejudice. That's a telegram to the state and the defense that things have changed, that the fairness, the independence, the rules and requirements of the actual superior court may be threatened, and the judge may need to act. By saying, I may act as the court, it spurs the defense and the state to get together and mitigate. mitigate the positions that they've got, ensure that the strengths and victories they've won are retained, while also admitting and acknowledging the parts of the case that they've lost. And by coming during these decisions and negotiations, by coming to agreements, we've now seen all but 2 of the YSL co-defendants in this trial now enter guilty pleas, leaving the 2 with very serious charges left to face justice in front of this existing continuing jury.
And I want to talk about those 2 remaining co-defendants, because this trial is not over. As much as Young Thug did go home last night and heard his sentencing, and all that came to a head, there's still a trial to be had with 2 co-defendants. We'll talk about that. I just want to talk for a moment and get your perspective on the different types of pleas that we heard. We heard a NOLO plea, no contest, and then we heard guilty pleas on some of the other charges. Williams overall facing 8 federal charges. Why was
felony,
that?
not
Felony charges. Why was the decision? What was the thought process for the defense, I should say?
It's really this is the most complex and nuanced.
I really like Josh Schiffer. He's really growing on me. I like him. The woman said federal charges, and Josh Schiffer, he's dialed in. He's paying close attention. He didn't let that thing get 2 seconds down the road before he yanked it back and clarified felony charges. I like that he did that. I think that's super cool that he did that, and he's been doing this a lot. So he's very dialed in. I like him. He seems to be definitely a good attorney that is paying attention to what's going on, what's being said, and is giving a right and solid answer. Now, let's find out about these pleas, because a lot of people had questions about pleas. So let's go.
Kind of negotiation you have. And we saw Jeffrey Williams enter guilty pleas on, I believe, 6 of the 8 charges that he eventually received a disposition or adjudication on. The big difference are the 2 charges, specifically RICO, that he pled no contest or nolo contendere. Nolo contendere or no contest is not an admission that you did anything. It is indicating to the court that you are not going to contest the state's allegations, and you are going to accept the conviction. It matters more in the civil realm than the criminal realm, because the admissibility and voluntariness of the criminal disposition is treated differently in civil court when there is a nolo contendere. You'll oftentimes see that in something like a car accident, or if there was a civil penalty attached to a criminal conviction, such as when we used to suspend driver's licenses for marijuana possession. You would see a lot of nolo contenderes there. It's, I'm not contesting it. That's different from the straight up, I'm guilty, I take criminal responsibility that he entered on the remaining 6 charges. What we didn't see yesterday is as telling. Mr. Williams did not use his first offender rights. There could have been a discussion involving first offender, the risks and rewards of proceeding under first offender. And as I understand, many of the charges would have been open to first offender. If you successfully complete first offender, you've never been convicted. The state, it's a plea and abatement. The plea is basically stored in a file cabinet, and if you complete the plea, you get to rip it up, and it basically never happened, versus if you violate the terms of probation, rather than a standard probation revocation, you actually face a resentencing under the Georgia First Offender Act, and the court can resentence you up to the maximum time allowed by law for your case, even if you did not plead to that length of case initially. We also did not see conditional discharge, which is basically first offender, except it's only for drug cases. And Mr. Williams did plead guilty to multiple VGCSA, or violation of the Georgia Controlled Substances Statute. I believe it was mostly cocaine. These combined charges are awful. They would stop the progress of the vast majority of individuals who work in the regular economy. These are really serious, but it's different from Mr. Williams due to his profession. Mr. Williams' biggest concerns were being able to continue practicing his chosen career of music, being able to travel, being able to work, being able to get into countries that might not want someone with his record. Preserving that ability and his earning capacity in the immediate future was very valuable to the defense, and they emphasized that in their request to Judge Paige Reese Whitaker to allow him to leave jail immediately, and it worked. That's really one of the big takeaways that we are all talking about. The state told Mr. Williams, you are such a criminal that if you do not do what we want, you should stay in prison for 25 years. However, if you give up your money and your career, we will give you probation as your sentence. And that's not landing very smoothly with the general public from my experience. A lot of people are asking me, Josh, why would they hold someone in jail and put them up for facing hundreds of years if all this time they were willing to give them a time-served plea? That conversation is extraordinarily important, and I hope that it resonates in our community, because those are the answers we deserve from our elected prosecutors, such as Fani Willis, who is walking away from this case with some big victories. She got her convictions. The cost for that, the reflection on that, and how this affects her as well as her staff moving forward, that's the story we're really interested in. Can someone like Chief ADA Adrian Love, previously a candidate for office, can they effectively run for public service again? What will the roles be, and what is going to be the result, the ramifications of Georgia's longest criminal trial?
Well said. We're talking with Josh Schiffer, of course, Atlanta criminal defense attorney. Let's talk about the two co-defendants that remain right now. You know, we have emphasized this yesterday, and we want to continue to emphasize this today. This trial doesn't end with Young Thug's sentencing. We still have two more cases to hear out, and we know that in one of those, there was an outright rejection of a plea deal offer with Demonte Kendrick, also known as Yak Gotti, his attorney, saying that he, quote, fully intends to take this to the jury and get our not guilty verdicts and go home, end quote. And then there's still much to be learned about the other co-defendant in this, Shannon Stillwell, or SB, as he is known as, who faces 8 counts. He has not stated whether he will consider a plea deal and whether what Young Thug did changes all of that for him.
Absolutely. And that's some of the interesting calculus going on behind the scenes. We know Yak Gotti, his lawyer, Doug Weinstein, has taken a very public position in this trial, working together with Jay Apt and Katie Hingerty at a wonderful firm doing tremendous work. And then, of course, Maxwell, standing up for Mr. Stillwell. It's become a meme how aggressive Mr. Shart has been in standing up and defending his client. Both of those gentlemen are facing extensive prison sentences. They have very different cases and allegations than those against Jeffrey Williams, including sufficient crimes of violence. Violent crimes are where the state has the most effect when it comes to appealing to a judge's interest in justice. Judges get a little bit wishy-washy when it comes to victimless crimes such as drug sales or theft crimes where there's not any violence is at the heart of every judge's wants, needs, and wishes serving the public, and stopping the violence, protecting the community. So with the violent allegations facing the two remaining co-defendants, that's a different plea negotiation entirely. When you have excessively violent acts, including murders, things like that, the court can't sit back and talk more about probated sentences and giving someone an opportunity to succeed because of the damage done through the violence. And that's a big difference in all of the demeanor, the tone of the negotiations, and what's on the table. We do get to continue this trial. It will be aggressively defended as well as prosecuted. And it's the same jury that heard all of the evidence over this last 150 something days. That brings up an interesting issue. All those appellate issues that are now going to be avoided by Jeffrey Williams, by the other co-defendants, those are still live for the two remaining co-defendants. Should this case reach a verdict, the Court of Appeals will almost certainly hear from the parties involved and have an opportunity to review vast chunks of this trial.
So far from over. Court resumes at 8:30 a.m. Monday. And we have been here gavel to gavel, and we will continue to do that for you on Atlanta News First and Atlanta News First Plus. Josh, we could stay up here for several hours talking about this.
Love it.
Because it's just fascinating to watch.
This is so important. It doesn't strike home until you look into the faces of your children and your friends and you understand that these are the people involved. These are real human beings. And you can tell the engenderment of connection. You almost see some of the humanity in the glances between the co-defendants and the deputies who have spent months protecting everyone, not just the judge. Those deputies are there to protect and serve everyone. This is such a unique chapter in Georgia's history.
Certainly. And I want to make sure that as we continue to cover this trial, that folks can connect with you, whether it be to hear more of your analysis or to hire you as a defense attorney. How can people reach you?
You can always just Google me. I'm Joshua Schiffer, spelled the same as the beautiful model from the 90s. I am not her nor related to her. I believe my partner has a website for us. It's jdlawgroup.law, jdgrouplaw.law, something like that. But just look for me. I'm tough to miss, and I love talking with people.
And we're going to continue to cover analysis of Young Thug's trial and the case involving the two remaining co-defendants on Atlanta News First. Our news starts at 3. We hope you'll tune in.
So, yeah, I just thought that was a lot of fun. I really do like Josh Schiffer, man. I'm a Josh stan. But I thought he did a great job of breaking down some of the realities and some of the complexities that most of us in this pre-K law school space don't fully understand. We just know that it was a lot. There was a nail biter. Like, what's going to happen? Why is he doing this? And all that kind of stuff like that. And what's going to happen with the defendants that are still there and all of that. Man, this is amazing. So I'm looking forward to hopping back in One Charlie coming up soon. I hope that you will join us as well. Let me know down below what you think about the whole thing. Share your thoughts. Let it out. We'll be doing lots of recaps and lots of opportunities to give you a chance to kind of express yourself, as well as looking at other cases. We will be finishing up the YSL, whatever that looks like, however long it is. We'll still be giving some recaps, some updates and that. But there's other cases as well that I would love to hear your opinions on and get some insight on. So I appreciate it. Everybody, thank you so much for your support. I really, truly value what you do to make this content grow, make this channel flourish, and all of that. Make this the best live chat on the internet. I really do mean it. And I hope you do appreciate that you are a part of it. Thanks so much, everybody. I'll see you real soon. Grace and peace.
Hit that like for a deal with Christian. Yo, for a deal with Christian. Smash that bell for DWC. Yo, smash it. Just smash it. Hit that like for a deal with Christian. For a deal with Christian. Smash that bell for DWC. Yo, smash it. Just smash it. Hit that like for a deal with Christian.